All right, we're going to call to order the Borough Council Workshop Meeting for December 4th, 2024. We'll start with our agenda and I'll call to order.
President Ferguson.
Here.
Vice President Dart.
Here.
Councilmember Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Fagan.
Here.
Councilmember Cresser. Here. Mayor Gerard. Here. Junior Councilperson Nesbitt.
Here.
Borough Manager Snyder.
Here.
Borough Solicitor Harper.
Here.
All right, we'll get to item 1 on the agenda, approval of the meeting agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting, December 4th, 2024 workshop meeting?
Motion.
Second.
I get a motion from Councilman Burns, a second from Councilman Cresser. Any changes or amendments? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. All right, we'll go to item 2, public input. Please rise and state your name and your address and the reason for addressing council. This evening, we have a public hearing ordinances for other things later, so we can hold off on public input if you want to wait till we get to those on the agenda. Makes sense, so.
Right, it's actually more appropriate for.
Right. Right, so. All right. Since there are none, we'll go to item 3, announcements.
Next council meeting, December 18th, regular meeting at 7 p.m. in council chambers. HROC is scheduled to meet Wednesday, December 18th at 8 a.m. in council chambers. The next planning commission meeting is scheduled for December 16th at 6 p.m. in council chambers. The borough offices will be closed Tuesday, December 24th and Wednesday, December 25th in observance of the Christmas Eve and Christmas holidays. The borough offices will be closed Tuesday, December 31st and Wednesday, January 1st, 2025, in observance of the New Year's Eve and New Year's Day holidays, and the Hatfield Borough offices will be closed on Wednesday, December 18th from 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. for employee training.
All right, any questions? If not, we'll get to item 4, public hearing for ordinance number 556, updating the International Property Maintenance Code from 2023 to 2021. And I'll turn it over to Madam Solicitor.
Sure. This is an ordinance. We do adopt the International Property Maintenance Code with just a couple of little changes. Well, when it was adopted, the first time it actually said, and as amended from time to time, but it's been a long time. So we thought that we should actually adopt a new ordinance with the new code in case we don't want somebody who's being called on the carpet for code enforcement to use the fact that the ordinance itself uses the wrong code. So it's pretty pro forma, and the code department here basically wrote the exceptions. They're the same as they were before. They're added things that we require. And that's all there is to it. So I'm going to mark as exhibits B1 for Borough 1 for proof of publication. We did publish this in the Reporter newspaper, you know, that we were having a hearing tonight. And B2 is going to be the actual ordinance, which is ordinance number 556, and it is actually on for action tonight. So I think to do this right, the first thing we should do is ask whether any member of our council has questions about this.
Just note that that's 2003, not 2023.
So it's 2000.
I think Councilman Burns is referring to my stating 2023, not 2003. So yes, to be clear.
We're going forward, not back.
Yes, yes.
All right, we are going forward. That's
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
They don't redo the International Property Maintenance Code every year. It's more like every 5 years. And so.
Yeah. We should probably highlight that Councilman Burns is really being very particular about what I said because Ohio State lost to Michigan
No,
last
that's
weekend.
insane.
So go blue for everybody listening. So sorry.
So, if Borough Council and the mayor are satisfied with this and have no question, I'm gonna look and see if there's anybody in the public who wants to make a statement or ask a question about the ordinance that the Borough Council is considering tonight, 556, to update the International Property Maintenance Code. The room's full, and let the minutes reflect that there was no public comment. So we can close this hearing and later this evening, it's on for action.
All right. Public hearing for that is closed. We'll go to item 5, public hearing for ordinance number 557, enacting a rental inspection program in Hatfield Borough. And I'll turn it back over to Madam Solicitor.
Sure. Like the last ordinance, this is a little bit different. It's an update to an ordinance that we have, but it does, it's gonna require more from the code department to get this done. So let's mark as exhibit B1 for the proof of publication from the Reporter newspaper that it was in there, that tonight we're having a hearing on this inspection program. And B2 for this hearing is the ordinance itself, ordinance number 557. We already required property owners to register that they have tenants. But what we thought we should do is have the rental units inspected no less frequently than once every 3 years. That's what we're saying. We have a lot in the borough, and we didn't want to make it so that the borough code officer couldn't do it every year. If he can get it done every year, that's great, but he has to do it once every 3 years at least. And what's the inspection for? Well, it's to make sure that the premises are code compliant and clean and safe for the tenants, and that they, look code compliant from the outside, that somebody's taking care of it. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes an absentee landlord is less careful about taking care of a property than somebody who owns it and lives in it. And so the update here is we already require registrations, but now we're going to require inspections. And so you have to register and get an inspection. We're also having inspections at specific times, like when the property changes hands, and somebody else is going to be there, so that a new tenant's coming in, or if you're going to sell it and somebody else is going to rent it out, we're going to require that you get a certificate saying it's been inspected and it's up to code. Because that's better for the borough, that everything is up to code, and that's a good time to check. If you're the buyer, you should want to see the certificate that says it's been checked and it's fine. Yeah, so that's what this is all about. And any questions?
Are the hours that have been allocated for the code department, will that be sufficient to cover? Because I would imagine this is additional work they'll have to do. Will there be?
It is. I'm going to ask James Schneider to answer that question.
Yes, it'll be sufficient because I spoke to Bob and we're going to reallocate some hours specifically to this outside of fire safety inspections, which we currently have, and then the time that he's in the office. So they know the amount of hours and the budget number that we have, and it's not to be gone over. So we had that conversation, so I expect it to fall in line, but I certainly will keep council and the mayor posted if we're kind of looking at, hey, it seems like if they're not getting it done in time.
Okay, thanks.
And speaking from budget, finance, and labor, it was actually included in the budget for next year, the numbers.
This ordinance was, and the fees and the inspections.
Right.
Right, I know the amount for the expense is similar to what this year is. So
Correct,
just
yeah.
has to make sure that.
Yes, it's roughly around like 80,000 for that department in whole. Correct, yes.
So, is there anybody in the public who has questions or comments about the tenant registration and inspection program? Or the ordinance? Seeing none, we can close the hearing.
Yep.
And this is also one for action later this evening.
Yeah. Having no additional comments, we'll close the discussion on ordinance number 557. All right, we'll go to item 6, partnership TMA bike audit study results presentation.
Good evening, council. Thank you for having us back again. We met with you in July, and since then it's been very busy for us at Partnership PMA. We have continued to work on our bike and wheel drive best project this year. They were told this is a 2-year project funded by EBRPC. Previously, we'd worked with land sale appointed, and now we're in a 2-year project cycle with Hatfield Borough and Hatfield Township. And the first 6 months of this project was focused very much on delivering bike audits, which is also funded by the AARP Community Challenge Grant. So since we met with you in July, we have hosted 4 online project advisory group meetings. I'd like to thank those of you who've been involved with those group meetings. Very informative and helpful in helping us identify which intersections we were going to study for these bike audits. I just want to quickly run through a little bit of the process. And I'm going to hand over and share this time with my colleagues. We will be brief, and you'll get a full written report later. But we looked at overall 6 intersections, and within the report, we gave some background context, and our auditors, our volunteer community auditors, took traffic counts in real time. That's kind of like another contextual piece to the actual site of the intersection. And it was very, very interesting. We did some work on bikes, we did work off bikes, and I'm going to hand it over to my colleague and Hatfield resident, Jerry Dalton, who's going to start by talking about one of the intersection audits that he was involved in several. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie. My name is Jerry Welton, resident of Colmar in Hatfield Township. Going about 41 years now. I'm an avid cyclist, and I ride every day. Today, weather permitting, of course. Just to add a little bit to what Jackie talked about, process. We were very process driven, and this was involved with the AARP. They had a toolkit that they offered. It's a pretty extensive document that talks about the technical side of intersections and traffic and layout and things of that nature. And they had a checklist that they follow. And we adopted that. We reduced it a little bit. And we actually went out on a practice audit on our own, Jackie, myself, Lucas, and Brad, who's not here tonight, to test the process. And once we had that process ironed out, we then engaged the volunteers to go to different intersections. I'm going to talk, I'm going to hand some of these out afterwards, the actual report. But the report talks about the road itself. If we did traffic counts for periods of time and compare that to some handout data. And then we get into observations and recommendations. And that's what I'm going to talk about now. With the first intersection being 40-foot road at Talmadge Avenue, or kind of towards Spanfield over there. And some of the observations, and these again are from the people that participated, some on bike, some off bike in the area. And again, certain roads there's just nothing you can do about it, like not suitable for bike. And we try to do that. Some areas there can be improvements, not every area perfect. Well, some of the notations or observations we have are absence of crosswalks and traffic control at the intersection crossing 40-foot road despite a high pedestrian activity. There's a stop sign and crosswalk crossing Talmadge Avenue. And we timed this, I think this was between 2 and 4 p.m. I remember I had luck to capture the exit of school day. The slip lane from 40-foot road turning right on Talmadge Avenue does not slow down at all, despite the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. And there's also a pedestrian item after the slip lane. I do know they actually dropped a student off on that item, which I thought was very interesting to come in the road. But I guess that's not the issue. There was no signage alerting drivers to potential presence of pedestrians. The street surfaces were well maintained with no issues with cyclists. The sidewalk on 40-foot roads was very narrow, and some of the trees had overgrown into parts of it, making it difficult to ride and walk on. It was a rainy day, and the surfaces were slippery, but not too bad. And we also observed the sidewalks being very close to the roadway on 40-foot road, which is not much you can do about that.
Are you talking about the sidewalks on the south side or the north side?
I guess it was both. We scoured the whole intersection.
Okay.
I don't specifically remember which side it was.
Okay.
Trees on
Yeah, because the south side, if I'm getting my directions correct, it does narrow there. The north side, it's where the houses are, so,
Fairground. Those are the ways.
yeah. So, okay, all right.
The speed limit at the intersection was 40 foot and town message is 25. Many vehicles were observed being far excess of that speed. We know that because it happened to be I don't know if it was in the police department, but one of those things up on a pole, on a telephone pole, whatever it was, showing meters. And we saw many vehicles over 30, with the highest speed being noticed at 40 miles per hour. And again, you have that high speed off ramp right into a residential neighborhood at 25, and it's hard to slow down. Many school students were using the intersection to get home after school. Two students were observed being dropped off on Town Avenue, and they had to cross back over 40-foot road to get into their neighborhood. There was no crosswalks for pedestrian signal or pedestrian signals. One middle school student was bike up the sidewalk to 40-foot road from school, and then crossed over 40-foot road to continue up Town Avenue. And several more students crossed on foot at the same time. They had to wait for the traffic to dissipate. Few recommendations for that area. 40-foot road could carry bike lanes and sharrows, or shared arrows and markings on where they should bike. Could be installed on Town Avenue. The intersection could use a stoplight to both control speeding traffic and allow for safer pedestrian crossing. Crosswalks and flashing beacons would also improve safety at the intersection. Acknowledged, that's a note for me, but I guess we talked with, I believe it was Larry mentioned in one of our online meetings, that there are a plan for they're called it rectangular rapid flashing beacon, something to do with any spot.
Crosswalk.
Yeah, going across, so that will certainly help. We can fully agree with that. I don't know what the time is, but a big addition to that. There's mixed use paths that exist on 40-foot road south of Hatfield towards Town Ensign. The sidewalk could be upgraded to continue as mixed use path to Hatfield to improve conditions for cyclists as well as pedestrians. The slip lane from 40-foot road on Town Avenue is dangerous for pedestrians and causes traffic to continue to exit at high speeds into the section here. This could be changed to a standard right turn lane in conjunction with signalizing the intersection below. So that's certainly all. Nice time. I believe I'm going to turn it over to Lucas to talk about this intersection. Next intersection.
We looked at a right turn lane there years ago.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lucas. I'm one of the program leaders with the partnership TNA.
Because we thought
So
it
the
was
second one
accident.
that we did in the row concerned the intersection of Main Street and Vine Street.
John, it was very Adams.
Expanding its student company basically all of Vine Street going up to Maple Avenue, and then also looking at the intersection of the Liberty Bell Trail and the Chestnut Street Trail on the side of the offices here. So some of the observations for Vine Street. That it's a pretty decent road when the traffic's slower for biking. Surface was all good. And then at the intersection with Main Street, this street is offset kind of, so that can be a confusing issue. But the traffic signals were clearly visible. Traffic signals were gave auditory cues, gave a full 24 seconds for crossing. In Main Street and Vine Street, vehicles appear to be following the speed limits, so some of that is due to traffic. So this audit was also conducted in the afternoon from about 2 to 4 p.m. So we observed school students getting home on bikes using the Liberty Bell Trail and the sidewalks in the borough. And then we also looked with the intersection of the trails, the crossings. So good news is the will be or red flashing beacon installed at the crossing there for the Liberty Bell Trail. But I know I attempted to cross on the trail crossing, and I had to wait probably a full minute before anyone actually stopped for me. So that's the same with the school students waiting on their bikes there. They have to wait rapidly, get across on the crosswalk as fast as they can. And then with that intersection, there's also the with the trails right there, but they don't properly really connect. So one of our major recommendations is expanding either the sidewalk or additional markings that show you where you should be going to go between those trails, because they're really great asset for the borough and can get you to a lot of places, but just that particular spot is a little confusing as to how to get between the two of them right in front of the borough office. And then, some concluding observations up at Maple Ave, Vine Street, which is also Maple Ave is a good residential street for biking, it's wide enough and, most of the traffic is low speed. But vehicles were performing rolling stops through the, stop signs up there at the four-way intersection of Maple and Vine. And then there is no pedestrian crossing sign for where the Chestnut Street Trail intersects with Maple. So some additional recommendations. So the rapid flashing beacon is already going in. Some of the existing crosswalks should be zebra striped for better visibility. Some of the crosswalks are a little old, so they could use some updates anyway. Additional pedestrian crossing signs at Maple Ave. And then enforcement for rolling stop sign violations in the residential neighborhoods. And then we also spoke with a tow truck driver who's a former member of Borough Council. And he told us one of the biggest issues is the cyclists riding around at night without lights on. So some additional education to encourage cyclists to be visible and have the lights on their bike riding around at night.
Question for you real quick. So on Vine Street, you said there was enough time to cross the street. But given the traffic patterns and cars turning left and right there, would that timing need to be modified, do you think?
As long as everyone's following the rules, I would think 24 seconds is enough, because Main Street isn't that wide. So I guess it was just like, the pedestrians have the right of way there, but I guess if there's an additional issue with not giving the proper right of way for pedestrians crossing for cars turning left or right. That could be an issue, but they're supposed to give the right of way, so.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, next intersection was Broad Street, Main Street. An area that I've lived many times. I used to live right down the street from there for about 11 years, so I know it well, but it's different to see it riding versus doing an audit, standing there for an hour or two observing. Some of the observations, including, it's very high volume of traffic, including large trucks. The roads are not wide enough to support additional car lanes. There are crosswalks and cross signals for pedestrians, but there was no offset for crossing Broad Street. Crossers were well marked. No signage alerting drivers to yield to pedestrians. Numerous cyclists were present, including commuters and groups of young people, teens primarily, riding down the sidewalk. Commuter cyclists also used the sidewalk in the street, which is indicative of riders feeling unsafe on the road. Sidewalks are not ideal for cycling since the area may be considered a business district and there was a high level of pedestrian activity. Numerous sidewalk trees at the intersection also giving clear cycling paths that make it very narrow space for cyclists. Share. With some untrimmed branches causing sight issues, cycling very close to the street. And on turns, the vehicles can't get close to the curb lane. There were no potholes or cracks in the intersection. And the drain grades were bicycle friendly, meaning the cross members were not parallel to the curb or at 45, which are hazardous because your tires started, they were more cross hatch, which allow for the bike to easily pass. Using direct observations from Brad, who's not here tonight, he's been with the PTMA as well, who frequently drives and rides his bike through this intersection. The lane now occurs as you approach the intersection to accommodate turning lanes, which forces cyclists to take the full lane, in other words, to be in traffic with the cars. Riders are forced to merge with high volume traffic. Drivers do not allow a 4-foot for passing a cyclist, which I believe is a law, depending on the speed limit. Maybe it's 3 or 4, is it 4? I thought it changed with speed. Road work has created uneven riding surfaces that isn't noticeable in car. It can be very difficult on bicycle. Some of the recommendations for that area. Additional signage for pedestrian safety, such as a watch for pedestrian signs or right turn yield to pedestrian signs for line drivers in the law. And a good example of that is what's right down the street in front of the post office. Beacon, right? Yield to pedestrians. Better lighting the intersection of the approach at nighttime so drivers can be more easily can easily see approaching pedestrians and cyclists about to cross. Katie was with us that day and she indicated that streetlights are being replaced with LED bulbs that will help hopefully reduce some of the lighting at night. As a cycle route, it's recommended only for experienced cyclists willing to ride in full vehicle lane. Recommended less confident cyclists to use the sidewalk and yield to pedestrians. Install signage directions to alternative routes for cyclists to reach destinations near lower LTS, lower traffic stress streets, which is exactly what I do. I go for that, I'll go down, it's Lincoln, one of those that cover the main one to avoid that intersection.
So in conclusion, next steps. So we have 18 months left on this project, and we'll be continuing to work in consultation with borough managers and elected officials to develop some action plans. From our perspective, we'll be identifying funding opportunities because we know that that's critical for any additional infrastructure and costs that may be necessary with this project. We're happy to provide technical assistance with grant applications. We'll continue to host project advisory group meetings and appreciate borough's support in also promoting those advisory meetings so that we can increase community engagement in the project. What you have before you now is really a work in progress report. As you know, we're doing this also with the township. We'll be presenting the township intersection bike audits later this month. And by the end of the year, we'll send a link to online copies that will contain the audits for the borough and the township. Thank you so much.
Bring us copies.
I have the copies. I'm
Okay.
just gonna make copies for you, which they provided for.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Does anyone have any questions?
Just a comment that sitting here, being a lifelong resident, I think there are great suggestions that I never thought about. When I was sitting here, I was like, oh, signage to get someone to go another way. And then I'm thinking of my child who rides around town without a helmet in that intersection. So I appreciate, and I'm sure, I think Katie said you saw him on that one. So I appreciate it. And I was just thinking it'd be great for public safety to look at the beginning of the year when you have your final, that we can sit down and the public safety committee and the mayor's on it. You can kind of maybe implement and talk about some things we could do moving forward in 2025. So I think the presentation was great. Thank you.
And there were a couple of areas I highlighted that we've already talked about putting crosswalk intersections in and lights. I'm wondering if there might be additional funding if it's grouped with the biking as well.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for your presentation. If there are no questions, we'll go on to item 7, reports from our standing committees and the mayor. We'll start with budget, finance, and labor. We did meet briefly this evening to talk through the budget real quick. And we'll be, it's an action on, or it's an item for discussion later on. But for the most part, I think the budget's pretty, we're done and ready to present it. So obviously, if there's any last final questions, now when we talk later on, it'll be time to go through that. So, so if there are any questions, I think we can table it till then. So we'll go on to planning, building, and zoning.
Yeah, so we haven't met since the last meeting, but we do have an action item that's on the agenda tonight, and that's to consider and pass the rental inspection program. I want to thank everybody that worked on that. I mean, it was a long time coming, and Larry Stevens worked on it, Jamie, Michelle. So it was, I think it's a good thing. I think it's going to help people that live here because, we've heard a lot of people complain about, and I'm sure all of us, have complained about landlords, when we rent it. So hopefully this will give us a tool to be able to address those issues. So.
All right. Any questions for Larry? Excuse me, Councilman Burns? If not, we'll go on to public safety.
The committee has not met, so we don't have any new updates.
Okay. How about public works and property?
Public Works and Property has not met since the last meeting, so we do not have a report.
All right. Utilities, Councilman Gerard?
The Utilities Committee met earlier this evening, in conjunction with the gentleman from Exeter, about Exeter, to discuss the July 2024 capacity increase and its effects on our upcoming budget. And that will be discussed in our executive session later on this evening for presentation to the public at the next meeting.
All right, questions? If not, we'll go on to Hurok.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mine out here. We have not met recently.
All right. Utilities is quite a lot to digest, so.
Line first.
Mayor Gerard?
I just have one thing to bring up. Everybody's aware that this, Saturday evening, we have the lighting of the Christmas tree. And I am very happy to announce that our junior council person, Malachi Nisbet, will be singing at that event. So,
Right.
I invite everybody to come on over and listen to our JCP, the Christmas carols. They're coming out.
Can we put that on our social media afterwards? or? All right, if there are no questions from the standing reports and committees, we'll go on to item 8, reports and correspondence. Start with the monthly investment.
A monthly investment report and the cash accounts was included in your packets through the end of October. Highlighting, as always, seems to be a theme this year that electric's doing very well for us in our investments and seem to be, down in our capital reserve, sewer capital reserve, and sewer managed. But Budget Finance and Labor continues to look at those and review those and make sure that our investments are good with KeyBank, being a good steward of the taxpayer dollar. So we'll continue to look at those, and if there are different investment options, it's something that Budget Finance and Labor will present to the board.
All right, any questions? If not, monthly EIT and LST.
Monthly EIT and LST was in your packets year to date through November of 518,172 versus 2023 493 587, and then when we move into LST year to date total through November 60,988 versus 2023 57,152. Budget Finance and Labor did account for an increase in next year's budget for 2025 of an additional $25,000 for EIT, expecting it to rise. So I think we have estimated $500,000 that we'll be getting from EIT. We will continue to look at these numbers and make adjustments if we can. But as you know, it's not guaranteed money. It's estimated. So we did increase both the EIT and LST from 2024 to the 2025 budget.
Any questions? If not, we'll go on the monthly year to date.
Monthly year to date was in your packets. You can see revenues at $7,813,000 versus expenses at $7,418,000. Always good to see revenues higher than expenses. If you're wondering why we're only at budgeted revenues, 72%. If you remember, the 2024 budget did have us paying the utility replacement project, which was budgeted like $1.8 million. So when you take that out of your overall budget, you're not going to be 100%. So that's why we're roughly through October at 72% versus 69%.
Any questions? If not, we'll go on to the monthly zoning hearing board application.
There were no new monthly zoning hearing board applications.
All right. How about Barth Consulting?
Steve Barth's report was in your packets. He just highlights the agreement or lease we're working on, or sub-license agreement, I'll call it, with the Hatfield train station. He highlights re-imaging Hatfield's town center, some ideas that he has, working on possibly initiating historic districts in the borough. There's some credits that are available, how he met with Diddens and the laundromat. If you have questions about rail line improvements, as you see, there's some cleanup that can happen. Him and I have both been in contact with the railroad, who promised to clean up after they replace all the ties along. And then just shared some grants that were available through November.
A quick question about the railroad tracks there. Do you have any sort of a timeline when that work is going to be completed with cleaning up all those little ties out there?
No, I do not. We asked for a date and they would not provide one to us, as they didn't want to be held to a date.
Must be nice.
Imagine that.
All right, any questions? If not, we'll go on to our police department report.
If you know, we had no fireworks complaints or.
All right, rather short and sweet. Any questions? How about our fire department?
38 calls in November, 427 for the year. We're being rather busy. It's only the fourth, and we've had 9 calls since the first, so. Rolling up the third block. I don't think we're gonna hit 500 for the year, but we're already 100 above any of our recent high call totals. So.
Do we typically see more calls in December or less?
Well, really, it's kind of weird, but our biggest issue is that our neighbors are having harder time getting trucks out during the day. So we're running a lot more mutual aid type calls. So like today, we went to Thomas and to Hallmark Hatfield and for calls for their companies, and either of them are able to get a truck out for calls. So it's not good. That's the kind of stuff that pop our. Not that there's more calls in Hatfield, so we got to be helping our neighbors more.
More support. Okay. That's good then. All right. Any questions? If not, we'll go on to EMS.
EMS report was included in your packets. You can see there were 10 zone calls for Hatfield Borough out of the 1,240 calls for October. I also received an email from VMSC that would like to thank you for their 2024 contribution, and they're happy to continue the partnership.
Any questions? If not, we'll go on to Public Works.
Christmas lights all lit off. Star lit off, I'm good. No, beyond that, we did end up hiring a new public works employee. His first day was this past Monday, so he's fresh in it, but he's working out pretty good so far.
Good to see you guys haven't chased him off yet.
Not yet,
Not yet.
not even a week.
All right, any questions? If not, we'll go on to the engineering report.
Trash report was included in your package. Just want to highlight the utility replacement project out on Broad Street and North Main Street. Permanent trench restoration over the water lines is being completed during the week of November 25th. And that they are tentatively scheduled to begin the storm tomorrow and the private stormwater on mid to late January. So Steve and I will be working with the homeowners for those properties that it impacts, letting them know the timeline and communicating when we think that their property will have construction take place. The rest of Chad's report was very similar to past month.
Any complaints or from the residents so far?
No.
Okay.
No, at the very, very beginning, questions about traffic. There were a couple emails that came in about detours, and then when we kind of pointed people to the direction of the borough website where we've been trying to keep updates, everybody seemed to be okay.
Okay, good. All right, any questions on the engineering report? If not, we'll go to the zoning officer.
There was no report included in your packets this month.
Fire marshal and set fire safety.
No report included in your packet this month.
Pool advisory,
No report included in your packet this month.
you're making it too easy.
I'm through here. And I was like, well, we meet on the 4th. Sometimes, the reports come.
They lag.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. All right. If not, we'll go on to item 9, our manager's report. Madam Manager?
Oh, there was.
Yeah, there was a reporter packet. It didn't change much from the previous meeting. Very similar, talking about land development, knows new specific updates. Same with utility billing. We keep an eye on delinquencies, though we're tend to have a lot of code blue around this time of year, so we don't do shut-offs, but we are keeping an eye on delinquencies. And the mayor mentioned the Christmas tree lighting, and I'm happy to hear that Malachi will be singing. And if you are interested in the 2023 financial statements for the Hatfield Volunteer Fire Company, it was dropped off, so anybody who's interested can look through those. That's really it, unless there's any questions.
All right. Having none, we'll go to item 10, our new business and discussion items. Start with item A, the 2025 proposed budget discussion and advertising. You want it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So from, again, I mentioned earlier from Budget, Finance and Labor, we have looked at the numbers. I think we're set and ready to present it. There were, as we discussed in previous meetings, a lot of cuts, a lot of back and forth on it. There are revenue enhancements in it, which I think we talked about it earlier as well. And we think long-term for the financial health of the borough, that it's required, even though we regret having to do that. And I think we can just get into specifics. So if people have questions, we presented all the highlights, everything, all the savings, everything we've done. So I don't want to rehash all of that because we talked about it several times now, but we want to open the floor to discussion to council and the public if there's any questions.
So was there a tax increase last year?
No.
There was not.
There was not in 2024 budget.
And what did we do to prevent that last year?
It was all about revenues in versus expenses, right? So obviously we looked at the expenses going out and we're able to cut those to some degree. But again, it was the big hitter on the increases that we had, especially with the electric. That was kind of the big driver for a lot of it. So, yeah.
Okay, so that's what you're saying is the reason for the increase this year?
That's part of it, yes. Yeah, we did get a $600,000 increase.
Sure.
So,
But we're talking about raising electric rates too.
yeah, so right now we're talking about a 1 cent increase on electric rates and a 1 mil increase on taxes.
And how much of that big increase on electric will the 1 cent cover?
Well, right now, there is a discussion with, regarding a NextEra deal that was presented to us. And depending upon that, whether we take that deal or we pull money out of our savings, we're gonna be able to cover that along with the revenue increases for both the millage and for the electric rates. So it's a combination of those three things.
So is there anything else in the budget that is, and not talking about the electric increase, but
Mhm.
just anything else in the budget that is forcing the millage increase?
Well, there were a lot, and Madam Manager could probably go into better, but I believe we had additional liabilities for the police. There were some additional liabilities for our insurances, some things like that did drive it. So, yeah.
So the additional police one, that was on top of the regular increase for the.
Yes, yeah, we have a long-term contract with
Yep.
them, and yeah, and there were some, and I'm not able to think of the words, Madam Manager, but there were some issues with insurance and things like that with police, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that required pension, that required an increase. Now, going forward, we know with the new building, there's gonna also be another increase as well, but it should match what we've been doing what we did for pension this year.
So this will help cover that.
Yes, yes.
It was your debt service went up 17,000, police 50,000, police 50,000, that's pension, that's, their contract, electric, over $550,000. For a 1 cent increase, you get $213,000.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the other difference you have to make up. Liability insurance went up over $21,000. So just right there is $695,000 in increases.
And those are, we didn't have those last year.
Correct,
or the
yes.
year before.
Yes, these are, that's the difference between 2024 and 2025. That number is $695,710 additional that we did not have last year. You get 139 for a mill and 213 for 1 cent increase.
All right, so that's important that we highlighted that because, you know, we all got the numbers and went through them, and I could not find where this big chunk came from, you know, that affected us, that we didn't have it affected last year.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't one big one other than the electric. It was a bunch of, it was several smaller ones that added up. Yeah. And I think that's, you know, and to compliment Jamie and her team, they did a lot of summarizing, a lot of detailing of that out for us. And we'd presented that previously. So that information is out there. If anyone's really interested and wants to get into the finite details, it's there. So.
And we have a meeting with, the Tracy for our newsletter the next week. And I already have I do a Microsoft To Do, and our newsletter, a big portion of that is going to talk about what this budget looked like this year, why we got to where we were, and kind of break it down a little bit more. We'll try to make it as user friendly or reader friendly as possible, you know, not too like text, but we'll try to include some things, maybe some graphs or something that will be a little bit more appealing to read in a newsletter, but that will be a significant portion of our newsletter that will come out in, you know, late, I guess, early spring, sorry.
And just one more question. So in the past, was there any indication that maybe we should have been doing this in the past, that we didn't get to this point?
You mean raising rates? And to quote a previous council member, he had made the suggestion that we should have done this a long time ago. One of the things that we've always tried to do, and again, Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, is really look at the impact on the residents. And so we've always tried to mitigate that. The electricity and the revenue we get in allows us to do a lot of that. And, you know, so that's always been a thought and consideration. But again, we should have done it previously, right? And so, for example, one great example recently was COVID, right? When we had everything happen with COVID, all the increase in costs that happened, that everyone experienced, we didn't really increase taxes or electric fees considerably during that time period, even though there was some justification that we could have, and there was a lot of conversation, hey, you know, we could justify doing it now. We still kept it low for the benefit of the residents. So should we have done it sooner? Probably. But I think that's just the conscientious nature of the borough and the management team trying to mitigate some of that increase on the residents. So
is it a fair statement to say that really the big problem was the electric?
100%. It went from 1.7 million to 2.4, just to purchase power, and we have to pay the bill. So it's not something that we can cut. It's just, we can, you know, maybe cut some spending here or there and some other line items or cut back things, but electric there's just no way to cut it. So
It is what it is.
it is what it is. It's unfortunate that it happened, and we're dealing with it. The IOUs, the PP&Ls, the PICOs, the MedEds, they're also going to be dealing with it.
Right.
So it's unfortunate, and nobody saw it coming.
and to highlight that, I mean, what that means is that residents in other municipalities are going to be paying higher
That was gonna
rates.
be my next.
Yeah, absolutely.
statement was gonna
So
be
yeah.
That I think that we should state that too, that it's not just Hatfield Borough that's getting this hit, it's everybody.
Right.
So.
Well, what I've asked Madam Manager to do is, you know, once the budget's done and we have these kind of things laid out, is put some updates on social media, on the website that details our electric rates, shows others. We've done that in the past, right?
Yep.
So we're going to highlight that information for the public. So.
And whatever we do tonight, if you see things like Jamie, you were talking about the LST and the, you know, the tax stuff. So there's still a chance that we can make a change going forward.
Yes, even though you're authorizing to advertise the budget tonight, you can still adjust the budget within 10%. Like, you're not adopting it tonight. You're specifically letting us advertise that it's available here, and if some crazy anomaly if something happens, we can change it before the next meeting. And then, but you just have to advertise it, and you also have to have a public hearing if you're gonna do a tax increase. So that's why that's on. Authorize that. Yes, you can still change it.
Right, and I know Borough Council knows this, but maybe the public or people watching don't. But one of the advertisements will say that the budget is available for the next 10 days. So people can come in and look through it line by line if that's what they wanted to do. Okay.
One other thing I'd like to let you know was, what I did was I did a rough and dirty comparison between last year's budget and this year. The increase we had this year in the budget, close to, or a little more than actually 60% of the increase was because of the electric rates. The remainder was what Jamie had mentioned about lease liability insurance, various other things. But over 60% of that increase was due to being blindsided with the massive increase we're facing because of the electricity capacity charges.
Right, and I think PJM, the grid, as they call it for this area, has put out press releases on that. So maybe when you're sharing the information with the public, you can, quote PJM and get their explanation for it, which includes, basically greater demand for electricity. And that's part of the cost. And like those data centers are using an awful lot of electricity. We all benefit by that, but they need a lot of electricity. So
Well, that's part of it. The other part is there's a lot of the older generating plants, the coal-fired plants that have gone out of service, so they're taken offline. And, in comparison to what we had previously, plus the physical capacity transportation, I'm talking about the high tension power lines. Over the past number of years, there have been a lot of instances where if you've ever heard of the NIMBY syndrome, not in my backyard, they haven't been able to build power lines to supply. So they are limited now, not entirely, but, that's part of it. But there's the transmission lines and also other infrastructure that hasn't been built that's needed to help bring down the cost of the transmission costs.
Right, so the point that you and I are both making, I think, is that this is a problem much bigger than Hatfield Borough.
Right.
Because usually the the sale of electricity by the borough is a revenue producer.
Yeah.
And it still is a revenue producer. It's just the raw material cost is going up.
Right. And as we've mentioned numerous times before, what would be thought of as profit from electricity that a PPL or PPG would have, which would go to the corporation, we reinvest in the borough. So that's why our taxes and everything have been as low as they have been compared to other area communities. So, so there is an advantage for us to have it. And other municipalities have actually told us, hey, we wish we had that same kind of advantage, so. But, and I see a question brewing.
Yep. So,
Use the mic.
Yeah, you want to use the mic? Yeah.
Yep. So that a significant portion of the increase was due to electric. The one bill, I think, prior meetings had generated $100,000 or somewhere around there. So 1 cent increase in electric. It's 200, you said 230, I think.
213.
13. Yep.
So the borough council and the team here consider like a 2 cent increase to electric rates, and if so, why or why not? Because it seemed that you already used the electric fund to supplement the general fund. So at least, there's one thing I know is that once the taxes get raised, it's never coming back down. At least with electric rates, if the market changes, that's a resolution, easily drop rates. So why wasn't that more thoroughly considered?
There were a lot of considerations with that, and our insurance provider, I can't think of the name right now. Divot has recommended to us for years that instead of relying on electricity revenue, that we increase taxes. So they've been recommending that to us for a while. And part of the thought process on it, and Rich and Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, was we kind of wanted to balance it out a little bit, right? Because the great thing about electricity is that everybody pays it, right? Whereas as with property, it's the landowners, right? The homeowners. And so by splitting it up, it kind of balances out a little bit for everybody. So there were a couple factors that went into that consideration, right? So did I state that correctly? And yeah.
We also factored into what I hate to say, our competitors have. So are we competitive with PP&L and Pico? Are we competitive with Lansdale? Are we competitive with Percy or Quakertown who also sell electricity? Those conversations had, it would be a minimal 2, if not 3 cent increase to cover everything for electric, and our electric rates, to be honest, we're third highest in PMEA today. So we're third highest out of the 35 municipalities in Pennsylvania that sell electricity. So a 3 cent increase, we would definitely be at the very, very, very top. And it's just unfortunate that we're on the East Coast and we're not in, we talked earlier, Grove City out in the West, where they can purchase power at 11 cents and sell power at 11. Like it's a significant difference being on the East Coast, just where your generation is and where your territory is. So we also considered all of those things.
It's a good question. Very good question. Come on, Owen, you were going to hit us with one question? Man, we must be doing good. Thank you. So, yeah, to reiterate, I mean, we on council, we're all members here in the community, the manager, our public works director, our treasurer. I mean, we're all members of this community too. And we realize, not only is this that our residents are paying, we're also paying these increases as well too. So these are conversations that we do not take lightly, and there are heated conversations at times. Nobody got everything that they wanted. Whether through council, public works, the manager, anybody. But I think overall it was a good compromise. It was a lot of good back and forth. I think, at least how I feel, I'm proud to put the budget forward. I think there was a lot of work that was done on it. And, like I said, it's regrettable, but it's also overdue, these increases. So. If there are no other questions, we will close our discussion on the budget, and there's an action item on later for advertising. And again, anyone who's listening in the public, there's still opportunities to look at the budget, come in and talk through it, and we can talk about it again, before we vote on it during the next meeting. So again, if recommend for anyone who has questions to come in or address council in 2 weeks to talk through it.
Or suggestions.
Somebody
sees something that we didn't see.
That's absolutely correct. Yep. 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 And I know Owen's very detailed, so if there's something we miss, he's going to catch it. So. But. All right, we'll go to item B, the public hearing for ordinance number 558, fixing the 2025 rental estate tax rate, or real estate tax rate, excuse me.
This will be the ordinance on for consideration for Borough Council to raise real estate taxes in Hatfield Borough from 3.25 mils for 4.25 mils, 4 mils for general purposes, and 0.25 to engines, fire apparatus, fire hose, firehouse. It's on for consideration to advertise for a public hearing to be held on December 18th at 7 p.m. in council chambers.
All right, that is the 1 mil increase that we talked about. Any questions? All right, if not, we'll go to item C, resolution authorizing increase to the electric rates.
This is a resolution that would authorize a 1 cent increase to electric rates across the board for all categories. It's just to show the public and borough council what those rates would look like. And it's going to be on for consideration at the December 18th meeting when you consider your budget.
All right, any questions? If not, we'll go to item D, the expiring terms for ZHB, HUROC, and Pool Advisory, Zoning Hearing Board, excuse me. HUROC and Pool Advisory.
The expiring terms for a zoning hearing board is Jim Rudolph, Hurrock, Larry Stevens, and Melissa Rosenberger, and the pool advisory is Caitlin Farrell. I currently spoke to Jim Rudolph, who's interested in being reappointed for the zoning hearing board. And I have not had a chance to discuss with other members. I should have asked Larry before. But Larry's interested in being reappointed to Hurrock.
I could not imagine Larry not wanting to be part of it, so yes, thank you.
So I will check with the other members and it will be on for appointment at the December 18th meeting. Outside of Caitlin, who is the major one that does attend the pool advisory meetings, even though there's not another term up, I do have a feeler out for another member that doesn't attend the meetings because I have a wait list for pool advisory board. And it's not your wife.
Oh, a waitlist,
It's not
wow.
a wait list,
That's,
just people that are interested.
that's
So if
awesome,
they're
yeah.
interested, They want to come and they want to go to the meeting, I would love to appoint them.
Okay,
So if the people are not attending the meetings, then, you know, there's people that are willing to attend and they're good candidates.
okay. My wife will be glad to hear that she's not on the wait list, so.
So I will get back to you. We might have another reappointment on, for the pool by
Okay.
the end of the year.
Okay. All right, any questions? If not, we'll go to item E, resolution 2024-13, honoring the 2024 Larry G. Stevens Distinguished Service Award recipient.
This resolution honors Caitlin Farrell as your recipient of the Lawrence G. Stevens Distinguished Service Award for 2024 and is also accompanied by a mayoral proclamation.
Any questions? All right, if not, we'll go to item F, resolution 2024-24, recognizing 5 years of service for Caitlin Farrell.
This resolution recognizes Caitlin Farrell's 5 years of service for the Borough of Hatfield for serving on the Pool Advisory Board.
And all these are actually on for item or for action later, correct? Yep. All right, if there are no questions, we'll go to item G, resolution 2024-25, recognizing 15 years of service for Larry Burns.
This resolution recognizes 15 years of service to the Borough of Hatfield, serving on the Planning Commission for Larry Burns.
All right, any questions?
Anybody opposed?
My wife.
All right, item H, resolution 2024-26, recognizing 15 years of service for John Cresser.
This resolution recognizes 15 years of service to the Borough of Hatfield Planning Commission for John Cresser.
Questions? If not, we'll go to item I, resolution 2024-27, recognizing 15 years of service for Michelle Cresser.
This resolution recognizes 15 years of service to the Borough of Hatfield, serving on the Planning Commission for Michelle Cresser.
Do we have to change your name right now before you get the award, or?
Not yet.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Item J, resolution 2024-28, recognizing 20 years of service for Diane Farrell.
This resolution recognizes 20 years of service to the Borough of Hatfield, serving as Borough Treasurer for Diane.
Yeah.
Yay, Diane.
Is Ken going to be upset that the two women in the
And he's not, yeah. All right, if there are no questions, we'll go to item K, resolution 2024-29, recognizing 30 years of service for John Petrozzani. Sorry, John, I'm horrible at pronouncing names.
This resolution recognizes John Petrozzani's 30 years of service as the zoning hearing board member and also serving as secretary.
If there are no questions, we'll go on to item L, resolution authorizing the AMP PA Rice Peaking Project share and agreement.
So this resolution will increase the AMP Pennsylvania Rice Peaking Project share to 1,960 kilowatts from 1,778 kilowatts. This is in reference to our behind the meter generators. So the increase, it comes to a performance rating where the output of each generation will increase by 60 kilowatts in total. This will increase the output for both the rice peaking project and the Pennsylvania rice peaking project. And it's estimated that it will, the projected capacity and transmission rates will increase in generation will provide approximately between 1,800,000 additional value to the RTO and the PA projects respectively. So they just were reevaluated, like emissions testing and those things, and they qualify for higher ratings than we thought. So we get more output from them, which is technically they're worth more money. So this resolution, along with the agreement, will be on for consideration at the December 18th meeting to just recognize that we're moving to 1,960 from 1,778 kilowatts.
All right. Any confusing, or it might be confusing, but are there any questions?
Good news for the borough.
It's very good news for the world. All right, if not, we'll go on to item 11, old business. We'll start with item A, resolution 2024-22, updating the consolidated fee schedule.
This resolution allows for the fee schedule to be updated. We reviewed it last meeting. All the updates were suggested by the code department and worked through planning, building and zoning committee. Included in there is the new rental inspection program. So if you have any specific questions, the last time we updated this was 2019. So it updates general things for permit fees, fences, sheds, anything realistic. Then it talks about the rental inspection program, which planning, building and zoning contributed to. And then it also updates other things like your solicitor fee and those things that haven't been updated in here.
And just one additional note, the intention behind the fees is not to gain revenue. It's basically just to cover our costs for the inspection. So if anyone in the public is ever concerned about that, that's the purpose of it. So, yep, it's not intended to be a revenue generator. All right, any questions? If not, we'll go to item B, the SEPTA sublease agreement, Bard and Jester Brewery, with Bard and Jester Brewery. Madam Solicitor?
We had, our proposed tenant or sub-licensee had one problem with the lease that SEPTA has already approved. So we have to get the lease approved by us, SEPTA and the tenant, and their problem was that SEPTA had retained a right to terminate the contract on 30 days notice. And they couldn't get financing. And so I was able today, and Caitlin made copies for everybody. We asked SEPTA to reconsider that. It turns out that they didn't want to have to go back to the board of SEPTA to get the sub-license agreement approved, but their general counsel, their lawyer, was willing to write a letter on SEPTA letterhead saying that that provision is only useful after the term and the renewal term. Okay, so if you're a holdover tenant after all your time has run out, they can give you 30 days notice to leave, but that they won't do that during your term or your renewal terms. So that should be good enough. I sent it to the tenants and their lawyers, so that should be good enough. So hopefully we can go forward. So what I said to Jamie was, we don't have a signature by the tenant, and we are waiting for one other thing from the tenant on that, which is to tell us when they'll have the brewery open. Because the borough's generously getting from SEPTA a certain rent credit, and we're letting the tenant have a rent credit. But the reason that's happening is because right now, the tenant can't use the SEPTA station for the brewery and the pub. Okay, so we want them to commit to us that they're gonna have it in operation by a certain date. So we don't have that, all right? Other than that, it's ready to go. So you can approve it, and it doesn't become a lease until the tenant signs it.
Okay.
Okay?
So one question, when it's saying the 30 days at renewal or term or ending of the lease, is that ours or our subtenant?
That is, SEPTA has the right to take it back from us,
Okay,
which of course would take it back from them,
okay,
okay?
okay.
So, and I can understand why that'd be a problem for somebody who was planning to spend a lot of borrowed money to make this thing work.
Mhm.
And I actually think that, we use SEPTA's form, okay? And I think that SEPTA probably could have revised the form, but that would have required a vote by the whole SEPTA board. I don't know if you've been following that lately, but they're pretty busy down there, okay? And so the general counsel thought that it might be better if he wrote an opinion letter on it, and so we have that. Hopefully that'll be acceptable to the tenant and their financiers. I believe they're using small business administration loans.
Okay. Any questions?
So other than that, the whole idea, and I know you all know this, but maybe the public doesn't, the whole idea behind renting out the SEPTA station is twofold. We rent it at a low price from SEPTA, and then we rent it to somebody else at a low price that will bring people into town. And the idea of a craft brewery with a little pub right down there downtown is a good idea.
Mhm.
And so it'll help us revitalize the borough was the other thought. So that's the reason why we're even doing this.
Yeah, just for public knowledge, I mean, the Pennsylvania Railroad, was it, wanted to actually rent the building for storage, right? And so, we didn't know what was gonna happen if they stored materials out there. We definitely didn't think that was gonna enhance the borough at all. So, so there was a lot of consideration with different applicants who applied to lease the space, so. And we, like Madam Solicitor said, we think this is a great opportunity to really expand the borough, to get people down in our downtown area to get invested. And, part of our goal has always been to not just have people drive through since we're in the middle of everything, but have them stop and get invested in what we have in the borough. And this is one of the first steps to do that. So we're happy, we're excited. We're hopefully, this condition will satisfy their financiers and we can move forward with it. So, yep. Was there any timing given when they would respond?
Well, they were very anxious and then they went quiet, I guess, when this issue came up, but I think we want the lease to start January 1.
Yeah.
So,
I just didn't know if they provided any timing or their
No.
financiers did once they got that. So, okay. Okay.
that's where we are. And as I said, I think you can approve it contingent on getting acceptable response from the tenant and also a date by which they expect to have the brewery open.
Okay. We won't put that on as an action item until we get a date from them.
Uh,
No, we can do it.
I know we can. I'm just asking the question. Do we want to wait or do we?
I
wanna do
was
it soon?
okay. It's up to you. You could do it either way. We have one more meeting in December, but it would be nice if I could tell the tenant, look, we've approved it, SEPTA's approved it. You're the only one we're waiting for.
A little bit of good faith push.
Right?
Okay. And then we can just specify the date as of January 1st and then update that if we need to.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Sounds like that's the best plan to show confidence.
Yes.
Okay.
I think so, because we do want this tenant and, we did have others, as you said. We want this one. We think it'll do what we're looking for down there.
Yeah. And like I said, they've committed to investing into the property as well too. So,
Right.
both the pole barn and the actual station itself. So.
And our consultant, Barth, helped us find these guys.
Mhm.
So that's
Yep.
important too.
Okay. So we'll have that on as an action item for next meeting?
It's on tonight, so you would have
Oh.
to, you could table it tonight if you don't want to vote on it. That's up
Or
to,
we could vote on
or you can vote on it
those
tonight. That's up to council.
Okay. I'm okay to vote on tonight. Is everyone else? Okay.
Let's get this moving.
Sorry, I'm missing. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. All right. Any questions? If not, we'll go to item C, advertising the 2025 meeting dates.
In front of you are the 2025 meeting dates that you will authorize to advertise this evening. We've gone over them. The real only difference from 2024 to 2025 is you have one meeting in January. because just the way the holiday falls and getting reports, so you have one meeting January 15th. And then everything else seems to fall in line very similarly to 2024. Still
And-
gonna hold a spring town hall and then gonna do another budget presentation like we did this year.
Yeah, I think that's great. So nothing from planning commission, they had no issues with the dates either.
No,
Okay.
when we talked about it at the last meeting, it's just those be similar and they can approve it at their next meeting. So even if you authorize to advertise it, we don't have to advertise it until they approve it at their meeting on the 16th. So she can have it go in the newspaper on the 17th or the 18th.
Okay,
Yeah, just has to be done by the end of the year,
okay, all right.
24 hours before your first meeting.
All right. Any questions? All right, if not, we'll get on to the action items for the evening. We'll start with item A, motion to consider enacting ordinance number 556, updating the International Property Maintenance Code from 2003 to 2021. Can I get a motion?
Second?
I have a motion from Councilman Cresser, second from Councilman Fagan. Any last questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item B, motion to consider enacting ordinance number 557, enacting a rental inspection program in Hatfield Borough.
So moved.
Second.
A motion from Councilman Burns, a second from Councilwoman Cresser. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item C, motion to consider resolution 2024-22, adopting the Borough of Hatfield Consolidated Fee Schedule.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilman Gerard, second from Councilman Burns. Any questions? If there are none, all in favor? Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item D, motion to consider the SEPTA sublease agreement with Bard and Jester.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilman Fagan, a second from Councilwoman Cresser. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item E, motion to consider advertising the 2025 meeting dates.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilman Gerard, second from Councilwoman Fagan, or excuse me, Councilwoman Cresser. I just changed your marital status. I apologize for that, so. Oh. So we got a motion from Councilman Gerard, second from Councilwoman Cresser. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item F, motion to consider advertising the availability of the Borough of Hatfield budget appropriating specific funds for 2025.
Motion. Second?
I have a motion from Councilman Gerard, second from Councilman Fagan. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. The wording of that was unique. So I don't think we phrased it like that before.
Yeah, because the resolution that you pass, you appropriate specific funds for the borough.
Mhm.
So it's like, yes, it's very wordy.
Yeah, yeah.
Motion to advertise the budget.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we'll go to item G, motion to consider advertising a public hearing fixing a 2025 real estate tax rate for December 18th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Moved. Second?
I got a motion from Councilman Gerard, second from Councilman Fagan. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item H, motion to consider resolution 2024-23 honoring the 2024 Lawrence G. Stevens Distinguished Service Award recipients.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, second from Councilman Burns. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item I, motion to consider resolution 2024-24 recognizing Caitlin Farrell for 5-year service to the Pool Advisory Board.
Second?
I got a motion from Councilwoman Cresser, second from Councilman Gerard. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item J, motion to consider resolution 2024-25, recognizing Larry Burns for 15 years of service on the planning commission, even though he's a Buckeye.
So moved.
I got a motion from Councilwoman Kressler, second from Councilman Gerard. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none, and Councilman Burns sustains. All right, item K, motion to consider resolution 2024-26, recognizing John Kressler for 15 years of service on the planning commission.
So moved.
Second.
And motion from Councilman Burns, a second from Councilwoman Kressler. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item L, motion to consider resolution 2024-27, recognizing Michelle Kressler for 15 years of service on the planning commission.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion from Councilman Burns, a second from Councilman Fagan, excuse me. I'm getting punchy tonight. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. Item motion to consider resolution 2024-28, recognizing Diane Farrell for 20 years of service as the borough treasurer.
So moved.
I get a motion from Councilwoman Kressler, a second from Councilman Gerard. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. Motion passes. And last but not least, item N, motion to consider resolution 2024-29, recognizing John Petrozzani for his 30 years of service to the zoning hearing board.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilman Burns, a second from Councilwoman Kressler. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. We will have an executive session to talk about personnel litigation and real estate. So can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I get a motion from Councilwoman Kressler, a second from Councilman Fagan. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are none. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.